Egypt strongly condemns Netanyahu's remarks and reaffirms support for Palestinians in a two-state solution. Qatar warns Israel and the US that Netanyahu's actions jeopardize the ceasefire deal's first phase. And Hamas rejects the US and Western initiatives for Gaza. It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time and you're now watching Q News. I'm Henny Saif and we begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Egypt has strongly condemned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's recent remarks in a US media interview, calling them misleading and a misinterpretation of Egypt's humanitarian efforts in Gaza. In a statement, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry reaffirmed its commitment to aiding Palestinians, highlighting the delivery of over 5,000 relief trucks and ongoing support for the injured. Egypt also criticized Israel's continued violations against civilians and infrastructure, firmly rejecting any suggestions of displacing Palestinians to neighboring countries. Cairo reiterated its unwavering support for a two-state solution, emphasizing that East Jerusalem must remain the capital of a future Palestinian state. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has reaffirmed the unified Arab rejection of any attempt to displace Palestinians during a meeting with U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen in Washington. Abdulati emphasized Egypt's steadfast commitment to the Palestinian cause, calling for a political solution that ensures an independent Palestinian state and the right to self-determination. He also highlighted Egypt's role in maintaining the ceasefire in Gaza, accelerating humanitarian aid, and leading reconstruction efforts. Additionally, Abdulati stressed on the importance of the Egypt-US strategic partnership in fostering stability across the Middle East. Egypt stands firm against Palestinian displacement, reaffirming its unwavering commitment to justice, peace, and statehood. Israeli media has reported that Qatar sent messages to both Israel and the US, warning that Israel's actions regarding the second phase of the deal, as well as provocative remarks by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, are jeopardizing the first phase. Israeli media stated that negotiations for the second phase of the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas have not yet begun, with internal Israeli discussions and talks between Hamas and mediators ongoing. Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya has strongly rejected Western and US initiatives for Gaza, particularly those proposed by former US President Donald Trump, calling them doomed to fail. Speaking from Tehran, al-Hayya emphasized that Palestinians will resist any attempts at displacement or expulsion. He reaffirmed that the people of Gaza will remain on their land and continue to defend themselves against Israeli aggression. His remarks came in response to Trump's recent claims that the U.S. is committed to gaining control over Gaza and rebuilding it with the support of wealthy Middle Eastern nations. Al-Hayya insisted that Hamas has successfully resisted such plans before and will do so again. Lebanon has strongly condemned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's remarks suggesting the establishment of a Palestinian state on Saudi land. In an official statement, the Lebanese Foreign Ministry firmly rejected the proposal and reaffirmed its support for Saudi Arabia in safeguarding its sovereignty and security. Lebanon also dismissed any attempts to displace Palestinians, particularly to its own territory, and called for a just and comprehensive solution based on a two-state framework. The ministry emphasized that any resolution must align with international law and the 2002 Beirut Arab Summit Initiative. The Secretary of the Executive Committee of the Palestine Liberation Organization, Hussein Sheikh, has strongly criticized Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's recent statements, calling them misleading. Sheikh dismissed Netanyahu's allegations against Egypt, asserting that the real issue lies in Israel's occupation and its ongoing siege of the Palestinian people. He praised Egypt for its unwavering support for Palestine, politically, materialistically, and morally, highlighting its efforts to prevent the displacement of Palestinians and bolster their resilience. The Muslim World League has condemned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's statements calling for the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. Secretary General and Chairman of the Muslim Scholars Association, Mohammed bin Abdul Karim al-Isa, denounced the remarks, stating they violate international norms, undermine state sovereignty, and deny Palestinians' right to an independent state. He praised the Saudi Foreign Ministry's firm stance on establishing a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital and ending the Israeli occupation. Al-Isa also highlighted Saudi Arabia's ongoing efforts to support Palestine, including its opposition to the violence in Gaza and the historic summits it has hosted to address the crisis. US President Donald Trump has stated his commitment to gaining control over Gaza, suggesting that parts of the region could be rebuilt with the support of other Middle Eastern states. He described Gaza as a demolition site, claiming there is nothing left to return to and that the remaining structures would also be torn down. Trump also indicated that he is open to accepting some Palestinian refugees into the United States, but emphasized that each case would be considered individually. The Kremlin has stated that it is awaiting more details on US President Donald Trump's proposal to buy the Gaza Strip, a plan that has drawn widespread condemnation from several countries. When asked whether Moscow found the proposal acceptable, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasized that Gaza is home to 1.2 million people. Trump has claimed he is committed to buying and owning Gaza, while suggesting that parts of the war-ravaged region would be rebuilt by other Middle Eastern nations. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has rejected US President Donald Trump's proposal to take control of Gaza, stating that such a plan is not even worth discussing. Speaking at a news conference, Erdogan firmly declared no one has the strength to remove the people of Gaza from their eternal homeland. Trump's remarks have drawn strong rebukes from world powers, including Russia, China and Germany, which warned that such a plan would only bring new suffering and new hatred. Less than 2 weeks into his presidency, Trump has already shaken decades of US policy with a vague proposal envisioning a resort in Gaza where international communities could supposedly coexist peacefully. And for more analysis on the situation there, we now move to Hela in our newsroom. Hela.
Thank you very much, Hani. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by international relations specialist Dr. Mohammed Osman. Welcome to Qnews, Dr. Osman. And could you elaborate on Egypt's stance regarding Netanyahu's recent remarks on the displacement of the Palestinians?
Thank you for having me, Hala. Egypt reiterated for the 700,000th time that it is sternly against any designs to displace the Palestinians out of their lands or to lay the blame for the humanitarian crisis on any other party other than Israel, the country that is perpetrating the active act of genocide inside the Gaza Strip. Yesterday's statement or press release, or this morning's press release rather, by the Minister of Foreign Affairs came to debunk false claims and allegations by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu regarding the administration of the Rafah border crossing, and also regarding the idea. The statement also has stressed that Egypt utterly rejects and will resist any attempt displace the Palestinians, whether to Egypt or to Jordan or Saudi Arabia or any other part of the world. And this comes within the context of Egypt's stern commitment to the two-state solution and for the Palestinian people to remain steadfast on their land. And it is their right, of course.
So what actions is Egypt taking to ensure that Gaza remains a Palestinian territory? And could you also discuss to us Egypt's role in the humanitarian aid delivery to Gaza?
You know, your two questions now are interlinked, because actually Egypt's commitment to the flow of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip has actually facilitated their ability to withstand the Israeli aggression and to remain in their land. When people receive their basic, or at least the minimum least of their basic sustenance, it does help them to remain on their lands. And that's why over the past 15 months, Egypt has facilitated the entry of over 5,000 aid trucks into the Gaza Strip. And Egypt would have even supplied more and more aid. However, the Israelis have always obstructed the entry of aid, especially after they invaded Rafah and took over the Rafah border crossing and closed the Palestinian side of the crossing.
Yes.
Now, with the Rafah border crossing back in Palestinian hands, back in the hands of the Palestinian Authority under the auspices of the European Union and Egypt from the Egyptian side, now in accordance with the ceasefire agreement, more aid is coming in. And the second factor, of course, is Egypt's adamant rejection of the displacement plans, and also by mustering international support, mobilizing international and Arab support to the Egyptian position and against the displacement schemes. And as you have mentioned, and our colleague Hani has mentioned, the rejection comes from the European Union, from most of its members, from the United Kingdom, from Russia, from China, from Brazil, everyone. And the Arab world, of course, everyone is against the displacement scheme.
How does Egypt respond to plans or schemes to counter recent U.S. initiatives regarding Gaza's future in light of Egypt's foreign minister's visit to Washington, D.C.?
Egypt is moving diplomatically in order to mobilize Arab support for its stance, and it also seeks to explain its viewpoint and its core stance, the unchangeable stance on this subject to the U.S. administration. Let's not forget that Egypt and the United States enjoy a historical relationship, and there are channels of dialogue between both countries, Egypt being a very important and pivotal regional power, and of course the United States being one of the global powers, basically, or the global hegemon, as some would say. So this relationship now is facilitating a means of dialogue, and the way Egypt is trying to undercut President Trump's plans is through mobilizing the world for supporting the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, starting with the third phase of the ceasefire agreement. So now Egypt is pushing for the implementation of the second phase of the ceasefire agreement, and after it's finished, the rubble will start to be removed and the reconstruction should begin. And Egypt is planning and seeking to host an international conference under the auspices of the United Nations in order to raise funds for the reconstruction of Gaza. I think with the people of Gaza remaining inside the Strip in their land, and this is the intention and the wish of the vast majority of Gaza's 2 million inhabitants. And I think that Egypt is supporting that, and Egypt will keep pushing for that in order to prevent any of the U.S. schemes from taking hold.
Dr. Osman, what are the potential implications of Netanyahu's provocative comments on Palestinian statehood?
Well, of course, the consequences is that it basically dissipates any hope for achieving a final peaceful solution to the Palestinian cause. Netanyahu has announced directly and openly that there will be no Palestinian state after the 7th of October. And Netanyahu, since the beginning of his political career as a member of the Knesset back in the 1990s, and then when he became prime minister, he was adamantly against the establishment of the Palestinian state. What is helping him in this bid right now and what is supporting his position is the governing coalition he presides over includes many of the far-right members, far-right parties, nationalist far-right parties of Israel, and of course all of them oppose the establishment of the Palestinian state, and all of them espouse genocidal ideologies that seek to remove the Palestinian people from their ancestral land. And of course Netanyahu's words echo that very dangerous sentiment, and as long as the Israelis adopt this kind of behavior and adopt this kind of rhetoric, there will be other 7th of October, there will be instances of violence, and there will be wars and conflict in the region. Israel will never ensure and guarantee its own security without the establishment of a Palestinian state. After 80 years, nearly 80 years, had they any sound person among them, they should have reached that conclusion by now.
And in your own opinion, how does Egypt intend to address the challenges of protecting the Palestinian rights amid all the ongoing Israeli actions and provocations?
Egypt has been active historically in all the international functions, in all the UN platforms, including the UN Security Council, the UN General Assembly, and all the other international organizations. Egypt has been a core and key advocate of Palestinian rights. And Egypt has always mobilized vast Arab and even African and support from the global south to the Palestinian cause based on the foundational principles of establishing a Palestinian state on the borders of June 4th, 1967, meaning the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem, and also guaranteeing the right of return to the Palestinians, who are millions of Palestinians who are living abroad in the diaspora and many other countries in the world, not removing the remaining Palestinians from the Gaza Strip or the West Bank. Egypt is actually on the complete opposite of that position, supporting the core Palestinian rights, and most of the Palestinian factions are committed to this solution. Chief among them, of course, is the People's Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, which is the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, along, of course, with the Palestinian Authority, which is basically the state of Palestine that is under Israeli occupation as we speak.
Well, from Cairo, that was International Relations Specialist, Dr. Mohammed Osman. Thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. Always a pleasure having you. Now we go back to you, Hani, in the studio.
Thank you, Ella. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has reaffirmed that the rights of the Palestinian people in Gaza, the West Bank and Jerusalem are non-negotiable and cannot be compromised. In a strong statement, the ministry condemned any attempts to prolong the conflict for political gain. accusing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of actions that threaten Palestinian lives and regional stability. The Palestinian leadership is calling for urgent international action against Israel's settlement policies and urging the UN Security Council to fulfill its responsibility in maintaining global peace and security. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has also condemned the Israeli Legislative Committee's approval of a bill to replace the West Bank with Judea and Samaria. The Foreign Ministry condemned the law as a dangerous escalation of unilateral occupation measures, warning that it paves the way for annexation and undermines prospects for a two-state solution. It urged international intervention to halt Israel's illegal actions, emphasizing that global ties with Israel should be contingent on its adherence to international law and UN resolutions. Israeli occupation forces have continued the aggression of Al-Farah camp south of Tubas for the 9th consecutive day. Palestine's news agency correspondent reported that Israeli forces are sending reinforcements from the Hamra checkpoint to the Tubas camp, continuing to destroy infrastructure and properties. It added that forces are raiding homes, detaining civilians and forcing families to flee, displacing hundreds under harsh conditions. Civilians face severe humanitarian hardship due to water shortages and blocked entry of food, medicines and baby milk. Israeli occupation forces have stormed the Jalazon camp north of Ramallah. Local sources reported that the occupation forces subjected the mother of detainee Mohammed Rafi Nakhle to field investigation, who is expected to be released as part of the ceasefire agreement. The sources indicated that the occupation forces closed his brother's shop, which is located on the main street, and raided a place equipped to receive detainee Nakhle, who has been in occupation prisons for 20 years. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet with the Security Cabinet on February 11th to discuss the second phase of the detainee exchange deal. That comes as the negotiating team returned from Doha this morning. Earlier, Israeli media reported that negotiations for the second phase will begin after Netanyahu's return from Washington and the cabinet meeting. Netanyahu believes the only options are war or prolonging the first phase if Hamas remains in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has appeared in Tel Aviv's Central Court to address corruption charges. After a 2-week absence, Netanyahu returned to respond to accusations in multiple cases, including bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Netanyahu is accused of receiving gifts from wealthy businessmen and negotiating favorable media coverage in exchange for political favors. He denies all charges, claiming they are part of a political plot to remove him from power. These are all the news we have for now, but here's a reminder of today's main stories. Egypt strongly condemns Netanyahu's remarks and reaffirms support for Palestinians and a two-state solution. Qatar warns Israel and the US that Netanyahu's actions jeopardize the ceasefire deal's first phase. And Hamas rejects the US and Western initiatives for Gaza. This concludes our news bulletin for now, but please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.